Welcome along to this video where we're going to be talking about HMO individual council tax banding, which has been in the news of late. And I'm joined by Wendy Whittaker-Large, who is co-founder of the HMO Council Tax Reform Group, and also Neil Chadda, who is a member of the group. And Wendy, it's really interesting to hear what you've been doing, because you've been having some really considerable success. But let's go back to the beginning. Tell us, what is the campaign all about? Because we've had ICTB rumbling along in the background for a number of years, but it's really kind of come to a head recently, hasn't it?
That's right, Vanessa. Really, we've seen over the last few years how, especially in HMOs, houses which were designed to have one council tax banding applied, where the landlord would be responsible for paying that bill. Now we're finding that the Valuation Office Agency, the VOA, are going in and saying, no, all these bedrooms are individual dwellings, and therefore they are each liable for their own council tax bill. Now, that obviously has various implications for landlord and tenant, but that practice has been increasing over the last few years. And that's really why we have started a campaign to fight that.
Well, I personally became aware of it on Twitter, where I saw a tenant who was based in Portsmouth saying that she was being back charged like years of council tax. I think it was a bill of over £2,000. And I think that Darren Brewer has been very instrumental in your campaign as well, hasn't he? He's a co-founder of the group, and I spoke to him at the Conservative Party conference with Ben Beadle, and it really does seem that you've managed to get some traction with this. How have you managed to do that, Wendy?
Well, we've utilised our network. I think it's also, it is a very niche subject matter, and it's very technical. So we as a group, we've constantly discussed how can we make this issue something that's not too difficult to communicate. Because as we know, Vanessa, for many of the landlord issues that have bothered us over the last decade, many of them are technical tax difficulties. For example, Section 24 was a typical issue that we wanted to fight, but it's very difficult to communicate to the ordinary person what this actually means to them. Now, with HMOs and council tax, one of our key themes has been that this affects the tenants, and this is effectively an extra tax on the tenant. And putting it like that means that most people can understand it. So what that has meant is that we've built up a big Facebook following. We've got about 1,800 people now following us on Facebook. We launched a fundraising strategy as well last year, and we've been able to raise, I think, nearly £7,000 actually for the cause. We've also lobbied our MPs, and I have to say, without the input and the energy of the group members, we simply wouldn't have got to where we are today, because many of the group have been writing to their MPs, lobbying their MPs, and making their voices known. And I think that has meant that as a committee, all the work hasn't rested on our shoulders. We've been able to distribute that. And that's a very, very powerful force for good, in my view.
No, I totally agree. And Neil, you're an admin of the HMO Facebook group, which is a very large group, and no doubt you've been able to galvanise members via there. But you've worked with other partners as well, haven't you?
As far as this particular goal to get this part of legislation over the line in terms of the consultation, we've been trying to use the HMO group as a channel to kind of build upon the work that Wendy, Darren, and the rest of the committee have already done. So I've been taking their lead and trying to promote what they've been. From my perspective, probably the most successful landlord campaign or grassroots landlord campaign that I've ever been a part of or witnessed. So I'm really trying to use the HMO group to try and bolster that across as many channels as I can, really.
And what about the NRLA? They've been supporting this as well, haven't they?
Yeah, I believe so. In fact, Wendy will probably know more about this than I do, but I believe Darren and Ben Beadle have had lengthy discussions about how they can coordinate in order to bring the cause to a head, if you like, and bring it to a successful conclusion.
It's a great example of industry stakeholders coming together with the property community to really make some headway with this. And I agree with you. I think I have to take my hat off to you. I think you've done an incredible job, because it basically has forced this consultation now, hasn't it?
Yes, we're at the place now, Vanessa, where the amendment, which was written by Alan Murdy, who is again one of the co-founders, and he is a barrister. Again, I have to say we've been incredibly fortunate having Alan as part of the group, because Alan is literally the most well-researched, most sort of intelligent person on council tax I've ever met. Not necessarily somebody you'd actually invite to a dinner party, because it can get a bit boring at times. Not that he's boring, but the subject is a bit boring. But honestly, he is an absolute fount of all knowledge on it. And that has been tremendous for us, because when we were approached by the Department of Housing to write an amendment that would go up into the Levelling Up Bill, we gave him the task. And with his legal background, he could write it in such a way that immediately the department accepted it, when normally they would have to use their own civil servants and their own legal team to write an amendment that would go into a government bill. But actually, it's our amendment that will be written into the government bill. So that was a very exciting moment when we knew that that was coming. But you're absolutely right. It's led to a consultation, and that is the period of time that we're in at the moment. And the consultation ends on the 31st of March. So we've got less than a month now to get as many people to give their views forward, put their views forward for the consultation.
Well, part of the reason that I wanted to host this interview was to create awareness of the consultation. And below this video, we will put a link. And Neil, we would urge everybody watching this, whether they're interested, you know, they have an interest in HMOs or not, to take part in the consultation, wouldn't we?
Absolutely, you know, it's a once in a generational opportunity to kind of reverse this unfair tax. And if we can build enough momentum for this particular campaign, hopefully we can roll it onto other landlord campaigns that are for the wider community as well. You know, so being part of this consultation, spreading it around, making sure as many people get involved today, hopefully this can parlay into something a lot bigger for everybody else later on.
Well, have you also been able to get the support of tenants for this? Because clearly, as we've been discussing, that they're massively impacted by this, particularly at a time when there's a cost of living crisis.
Absolutely, Vanessa. I think tenants are starting to realise that they are important in this particular consultation, and that this directly affects them. And therefore, we've produced information that helps a tenant to complete the consultation. The consultation questions are quite technical, quite detailed, and unlike many other government consultations, which are held online, you can type in your details directly into a web page, and then it's automatically processed when you click the button. In this particular consultation, the department are simply asking for you to email your replies to them. We knew that this was going to be a barrier for people who haven't got a lot of time and don't know the ins and outs of the 1992 Local Government Finance Act like we do, having learned it from Alan. So we thought we would help people by providing some easy to use guidance that they would then be able to kind of copy and paste basically, and then email. So any tenant, any landlord, any agent or operator, we've produced a guide that is suitable for you, that you can, if you wish to, simply copy and paste and forward to the department. And there's space also to add in your own views and comments to that, if you wish.
Well, do you guys have any inkling of why the VOA have even gone down this road in the first place? Because I think one of the issues with it, and I'm not an HMO landlord myself, but just looking from the outside in, is it's not consistent. It hasn't been consistent across the country. Some local authorities have decided to do it, and then others haven't. And I think that lack of consistency is very concerning to landlords with HMOs, because they don't know if they might suddenly get, you know, hit with it. So why is the VOA pushing this agenda, do you think?
You know, the honest truth is that I'm not entirely sure why. I don't think it really benefits the VOA. I don't think it benefits local councils. I don't think it benefits landlords, and I don't think it benefits tenants. So I am unsure or have any visibility as to why individual offices around the country make this discretionary change to individual HMOs in various different boroughs. Wendy, maybe you have more insight, but as far as I'm concerned, there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it.
Neil, I would agree with you that up until recently, I think we've all felt that this was shrouded in mystery. Why on earth would it be applied so inconsistently across the UK, and why do it in the first place? However, what has come to light, Vanessa, is something quite shocking, which is that any new dwelling that comes onto a local council's list achieves a new housing allowance from the government. And last week we had it confirmed in writing from Lee Rowley, who is a housing minister within the department, that HMOs that are rebanded, each of those rooms gets added to the new council tax list and receives the discretionary payment from the government for a new dwelling. So actually, it's incentivising local councils to do this because they get £6,000 for a new dwelling that they create. Now, this is not a new dwelling, it's simply a redefinition of a bedroom. But because of that, they're getting extra funding from central government. So if there was any reason to do it, that surely is a very important reason.
Wendy, that's absolutely shocking. And not only that, it will increase the government's targets in terms of how many new dwellings they're providing as well. So
correct.
There might be a double agenda behind it, but that really is shocking. It's so good that you have brought this issue to the wider attention of the media. So we've got the consultation ongoing. Obviously, it will close. There'll be a period for it to be assessed. What would be your ideal outcome for this? That there's a proper policy in place that ICTB is not charged across the UK. Would that be the ideal outcome?
We're asking for something very simple. We're asking that non-self-contained rooms in an HMO, so that is a room that it might have an ensuite, but it won't have a kitchenette. So it's a room that is something where you sleep, a room where you sleep and you might, have a shower, but it certainly isn't a room where you can live. So it's a non-self-contained room, and we're simply asking that that is not allowable in terms of being labelled as a dwelling for council tax purposes. And that simple amendment to the law, which we've written out, which Alan has written out, will then be inserted into the Levelling Up Bill, and it will then become law later this year. So our outcome, which would make me put the champagne on ice and then pop it, would be if we knew that the NC7 amendment, as it's written, would be inserted into the law, would go into the King's Speech, and would become law later this year.
Well, amen to that. I think that would be an incredible outcome. And Neil, just remind us, at Property Tribes, we have been creating awareness of the consultation. We've had 2 or 3 threads about it, actually. It is of interest to the PT community. What is it simply a case of filling out the consultation, or is there anything else that the Property Tribes community can do to assist your campaign?
So what we can do, the main thing is that we're attracting people to fill out the consultation. As Wendy mentioned previously, we have on the HMO and counciltax.co.uk website, there is draft consultation or draft replies to the consultation, which you can take and amend and send out in your own kind of from your own perspective, in order to get your views across to local government or to the consultation, the people that are doing the consultation. So that's our #1 priority, and hopefully when we're working with Property Tribes and other organisations like the HMO Group, etc., the NRLA, we're driving as many responses to that as possible.
And maybe we could also ask members to share the consultation link on their social media and into every single property Facebook group that they're a member of. That would help as well, wouldn't it, Wendy?
It would really help. And actually also, if they're HMO landlords and they'd like to ask their tenants to fill out the consultation, that would be great as well, because the bigger voice of the tenants that we get, the better for this consultation. Also, could I just sort of finally add that if anyone would like to donate to the campaign, Vanessa, you know what it's like raising money for a campaign in which you believe in. However much energy and focus you yourself put against it, nothing counts quite as much as having a little bit of cash in the bank as well to be able to draw on for all those expenses that, as you know, can rack up pretty quickly when you're traveling or spreading the word about what you're trying to do. So if people felt so moved to be able to donate to the campaign, we'd be incredibly grateful. And it's up to people to decide how much they'd like to give us, but every penny is very, very carefully spent and looked after to be able to maximize the voice of landlords and tenants, and to implement this very, very discriminatory practice which we want to have outlawed.
Well, all that remains really is for me to say, well done to Wendy, Neil, and the team involved behind this. I do agree with you. I think you've kind of created a blueprint for a successful campaign for landlords, something that we can all learn from and benefit from going forwards. I will put the links to the consultation and also the links Wendy mentioned for the actual campaign group itself, where you can get additional information and make a donation. So I'll put all of those below this video. And I guess, Wendy, any final words, or do you think we've covered everything?
I think it isn't over the line yet, Vanessa, so everybody's contribution really counts. Sometimes I think when you hear about government consultations, you think, well, my voice doesn't matter, it doesn't really count. We've got very close to the Department of Housing, Local Communities and Local Government and whatever else they're called. I can never keep up with the title, but we've had lots of one-to-one meetings with them, and we kind of know the direction of travel. But we do know that they will read every single entry. So your voice does count. Even if you simply say, I disagree with this policy, please change it. Even that matters. So I really would like to please just urge people to complete the consultation and write whatever they can to make their voice heard, because it does count.
All right. Well, thank you both for joining me for this interview, and everybody watching, you've got your marching orders, you know what to do. Please do fill in the consultation. And if you want to ask Wendy any questions, please do comment on the thread on Property Tribes. I'm sure Wendy will be happy to answer if this interview has kind of made you think of anything else that you would like to ask her that I didn't have time to ask today. So thank you both very much, and best of luck with the rest of the consultation, and here's for a very positive outcome.
Vanessa.
Great, thank you.